What was it that got you sober?
But it was booze. That is what got me. I would just like not hesitate to have a cocktail or 3 a.m. I just wouldn't. I'm just like a no dicking around kind of guy, I guess. I've been to one AA meeting in my life, and it was 3 weeks ago. And it was because Russell Brand, who I really love, was at my house, and he goes to AA all the time.
What was it that got you sober? Was it a scare? Did you hit rock bottom?
I didn't really. I mean, I was hosting Crossfire actually at the time. And so I had been successful, young, and it wasn't really drugs. I mean, I was not, I did a lot of drugs, but that's just because of the world that I was in. Like that was not, I mean, it's embarrassing to say it now because drugs are so clearly bad, like really bad. And all these people now die of drugs. And that was not the case when I was a kid. Like drug addicts died of drugs. Like, junkies died of overdoses, but like no one you'd ever know would ever die of drugs. At this point, I know a lot of people who died of drugs. So it's a different landscape. It's a different attitude now. So it's embarrassing to say that, but I was not a drug addict. I just was like into adventure and experimenting with stuff. And the world I was in, that was pretty much acceptable. I hate to say it, but it was true. That's just true. So same with cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking was encouraged. So it was a different time. But it wasn't the drugs. It was that, though, like some drugs really wear you out, like cocaine. Not good. And hard to live a productive life if you're like going to bed at 7 a.m. or whatever, which I didn't do a ton, but some. But it was booze. That is what got me. And it was just, just progressive. I was 33. And my wife was pregnant with our 4th child. And I was fairly functional. I mean, I did a daily TV show and was fairly well known, kind of famous actually at that point. And so, kind of killing it. But I do think the physiology of it, which I don't understand really, but that's real. Like your body responds to alcohol differently as you age. And I would start to get these hangovers that were debilitating. And I'm busy. I've got a lot of children. I've got stuff to do. And I would just like not hesitate to have a cocktail or 3 a.m. I just wouldn't. I'm just like a no dicking around kind of guy, I guess. And I don't feel good. So like, well, there's a screwdriver for that. And that's a very bad pattern to get into, obviously. So, but anyway, I quit when I was sitting at my desk on Sunday morning. And at this point, we had gotten an ice maker in our refrigerator, which we'd never had. If you're struggling with drinking, don't get an ice maker because it's just too easy. Like where you go and you click the
yeah.
And we don't even have one now, actually. I don't know why. We're sort of low tech on kitchen equipment, but whatever. In this one house that we had, we got an ice maker, and I was like, "Wow, look at that!" Clink, 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 and then you could like. And someone taught me about Scotch. I knew nothing about Scotch. I was always a bourbon guy or whatever. But I sat and drank a quart of Scotch with a friend of mine. He's like, "Scotch is really good. Just drink a quart of it." So we did. We're up in Maine. It didn't matter, it was in the summertime. But then I got back to Washington in late August or mid-August, and I have this job. And then I get home from the job. It's like, click, click. Well, I'll try some Scotch. And the next thing you know, you're like shit-faced at home. And part of me was like, that's not good. And I had a couple of moments where I lost control. One actually at the White House Christmas party in 2001. I got too drunk to talk and stuff like that. It's just embarrassing. But I woke up this one morning at the last day of August 2002, and my wife was 10 days away from giving birth to our 4th child. And I was sitting at my desk, like smoking a cigarette at home, feeling bad. And I just heard this voice. I don't know if it was a voice. It was from God. And it was the clearest possible instruction. If you keep doing this, you will lose your wife and children. And I haven't always been a great husband or father, but I've always wanted to be. I've always really cared a lot. And it's easy to care about people who are, loving and fun to be with, as my family is. So it's not hard, but I have always cared a lot. And I just had this dead certainty that if I kept on this path, I would lose my wife and children. No one had complained about my drinking, really.
What were you doing when you got that voice, when you heard it?
I was sitting at my desk smoking a Camel Unfiltered. I'll never forget it, looking out my window at my lawn and feeling just like enervated and crappy and cloudy as you do when you're hungover. And I just had this feeling, and I was like, wow, I think I'm an alcoholic. I had lost control. I mean, I'm leaving a few things out, nothing dramatic, but I didn't crash a car. But I blacked out a couple of times, which I didn't know what that was, like actually blackout. I'd always heard people say that, but like I didn't remember how I got home from a restaurant, for example, with my college roommate. Or I had a friend over, another college roommate that summer, wonderful guy, his wife and children, just a beautiful family and beautiful people, great people, like not people you'd want to be like snarfing drunk in front of. And I remember sitting in my backyard in Washington and making gin and tonics. I'm quite a good gin and tonic maker. But it's the kind of thing you want to have a couple cocktails with your buddy and his wonderful wife, and they're just really great people. And next thing I know, I'm like shit-faced. I'm like, I didn't really actually want to be shit-faced. I can't believe I got shit. Like, what is that? I was losing control. This is all very... And then some other stuff like that, or I stayed, I had a friend in town, and he's like, let's do a couple lines. And, next thing I know, it's like 7 a.m, and I'm like, what? I can't do this shit. Anyway, the bottom line is I quit. I never had another drink after that. And I went into like, not medically serious, but for me, pretty serious withdrawals. And that I was like, what? I'm having alcohol withdrawals? I knew nothing about this, okay? I didn't know that there were alcohol withdrawals. Like, I just didn't know. You'd think because of my mother, I would know this, but I didn't know anything. And my brother was, a problem drinker also. But I didn't think of myself as a problem drinker. I was like, well, my brother's out of control. He later quit too. But when I started to go into withdrawals from alcohol, like shaking hands, can't sleep, sweating a lot, and I have to host this TV show, and I'm like, I was addicted to alcohol. Holy smokes. Like, how did I not know that? And then, so I never drank again. And unlike most people who quit, or many people who quit, I've never wanted to drink again. I just never, once I got past like the first 6 months, I just felt so much better. I was so grateful. I'm so great. I've enjoyed being sober a lot. And that's a huge blessing. That's not from me. It's not like I have a especially strong character. I don't. If you put a tray of Fig Newtons right here, you would see how weak I really am. It's just on this one thing, the booze and drugs, it's like, I don't want that at all. And so I never went to AA. I didn't go to AA. I've been to one AA meeting in my life, and it was 3 weeks ago. And it was because Russell Brand, who I really love, was at my house, and he goes to AA all the time. And I said, why do you go to AA? And he's like, I just love the people, and people are so honest. And I said to him, I thought you went to AA to keep yourself from drinking again. Like, you're right on the edge, which I'm not at all. Like, you couldn't force feed me alcohol. Like, I just don't want it. And he's like, no. You go for the beauty of being around truth and people who are just totally unafraid to say who they really are. And there's something wonderful about that. That's like the best thing there is. That's liberation. Like, that's actual liberation. And I was like, I got to go to AA. So I went to an AA meeting and I loved it. And I'm going back. I've been traveling and all this stuff, but I ran into a buddy of mine literally on the road, trucks parked next to each other. And he's like, I'm going to AA. And I was like, well, I'm going to, text me. I had to travel, but I was like, when I'm back next week, just text me when you go. I want to go, whatever. It's not that interesting, but that's my experience of it. I was delivered from that. And I don't know why, but I'm just so grateful. And my brother too. My brother was an actual drinker, like, whoa. I mean, no more than I was, but he's like way more boisterous and like Swedish than I am. And he's a punch you out guy and a wonderful person. But he woke up one morning, he's like, I'm never drinking again. And he never did.
Wow.
Almost 20 years ago. So it's like we both have been so blessed that way.
There's a lot of people out there struggling with addiction and alcoholism. So do you have any words of wisdom for somebody that's looking to make the change? No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.